Okay, let's dive into the story of one of Warcraft's most fascinating and, well, cyclical villains, Teron Gorefiend. We're going to unravel the twisted history of the very first Death Knight, a character whose story, for a lot of players, doesn't start at the beginning, but with his own resurrection.
So, our story kicks off not way back in the past, but with a quest you can pick up in the shattered, fell-scarred landscape of Outland's Shadowmoon Valley. So, you're exploring the area, and you come across this ghostly orc spirit hanging out at the Altar of Shadows. He calls himself the Ancient Shadowmoon Spirit, says he's an expert on this long-dead villain, and he needs your help with what seems like a bit of a history project, tracking him down. Now, this spirit tells you that to find the infamous warlock Teron Gorefiend, who's been dead for ages, he needs you to collect these powerful artifacts: his cloak, his truncheon, and his armor. Supposedly, it's all for some kind of divination ritual. Seems straightforward enough, right?
So you go through all this trouble, fighting spirits and dragons, and you bring these powerful items back to the spirit at the altar. But the moment you hand them over, you realize you've made a terrible, terrible mistake. And there it is, the big twist. The whole quest was a complete and total setup. The spirit didn't want to find Gorefiend because the spirit was Gorefiend the entire time.
Yup, it was all a lie. The poor, helpless ghost who needed your help? Just an act. You've been played by the very same ancient evil you thought you were helping to keep buried.
Just think about that for a second. Your actions as the player, the hero, are the direct cause of this villain returning to the world. You literally went out and gathered the keys to his prison and handed them right to him. Ouch. So to really get who Gorefiend is, we have to rewind the clock. We need to go back to who he used to be, a respected orc shaman named Teron'gor. You know, the craziest part is that he started out as a good guy. He was a spiritual leader for his clan, and he was desperate to help his people because the elements had suddenly gone quiet and weren't answering the shamans anymore.
And this is the great tragedy of his story, isn't it? The solution he found, the one offered by Gul'dan, was basically poison. In his desperate attempt to save his people, he embraced a power that would corrupt him and drag them all deeper into darkness. It's just so ironic.
And he didn't just stumble into this new power. He led the charge. He and a bunch of other former shamans formed the secret cabal that became the real power, pulling the strings behind the original horde.
And this path of corruption? Well, it leads directly to his most infamous transformation, the one that would define his name and his legacy forever.
So when Doomhammer took over the Horde, he found out about the Shadow Council's scheming, and, well, he had them all killed. For Teron'gor, that really should have been the end. But his master, Gul'dan, had one last, desperate card to play. To save his own skin, Gul'dan promised Doomhammer a brand new kind of warrior, something that could go toe-to-toe with the powerful mages of the humans. He was going to create horrifying super soldiers born from death itself.
This grim combination is what makes these first Death Knights so deeply unsettling. Gul'dan literally took the soul of a cunning, traitorous orc warlock, Teron'gor, and used necromancy to shove it into the dead body of an honorable human knight. It's a monstrous fusion of the two warring races. And just like that, Teron'gor was gone. In his place stood Teron Gorefiend, the prototype for a whole new kind of terror on the battlefield. He had cheated death, and in this monstrous new body, he swore his loyalty to the Horde all over again. And what's so wild is that this whole theme of death and unnatural rebirth, well, it becomes the defining feature of Gorefiend's entire existence. It just keeps happening. You can see it right here. His whole life is just this insane repeating pattern. He gets killed, but his spirit hangs on. He gets brought back, only to be struck down again later. It is a constant, violent cycle of death and resurrection. Even in what's supposed to be his final moment, as a group of heroes defeats him in the Black Temple, he hints that this isn't really the end. His last words suggest that for him, death is just another turn of the wheel. It's so creepy. Okay, so why does this one villain, who just keeps dying and coming back, still matter so much in the world of Warcraft? Well, for one, his impact is still everywhere. If you play a Death Knight, you use an ability literally named Gorefiend's Grasp. He's a legendary card in Hearthstone, and the developers even updated his in-game model specifically to better reflect his unique lore, that orc souls stuck inside a human knight's body. But really, his legacy isn't just about his own story. It's about the entire class of heroes and villains he inspired. Every single Death Knight that came after him, from Arthas all the way to the ones we can play today, owes their existence to that dark ritual that first created Gorefiend. He's just one of the most compelling and cleverly introduced characters in the game's long history. His story is this perfect, tragic loop of power, betrayal, and endless deception. And that really leaves us with one final thought. In a world where death is so rarely the final chapter, and for a character whose entire thing is cheating it, have we really seen the last of Teron Gorefiend?